Hey, this is Jim coming to you on a hot summer day in Utah, working on my Ford F350 Power Stroke diesel. It's a 1994. They've put in a pretty wimpy clutch master cylinder in these trucks. Oh, by the way, I got some tips online how you can put a roll-on paint job on your truck, and I rolled with Rust-Oleum paint. My first car I rolled was this one, and I rolled this one 2 years ago. It's still in pretty decent shape. Starting to fade a little bit on the roof and the hood, but I got my daughter through school. Only paid $800 for that little Mirage. Looked like a piece of crap when I first got it. And this one used to be white, all white, and it was starting to rust out, so I did a little body work on it and bought myself about $20 worth of paint and about $55 worth of primer. No, I take that back. That was the other car. I just bought roll-on primer, Rust-Oleum roll-on primer for this truck, and gosh, man, I might have spent $80 on paint and primer to do this job. Already had some tape. Not a big deal. You don't get a lot of overspray, so you don't have to really mask off a whole bunch of stuff. Of course, you don't get any overspray at all. Bought these wheels for about $600. Real cheap wheels, brand new wheels though, made by Moto Metal. And bought a set of small 215 tires. My son says this truck looks like a fat boy with a Speedo on now, but man, I'll tell you, it rides nice. It handles the canyons well, those small tires, and to me, I think it increased the safety of the vehicle, not having those big bouncy balloon tires on there. Plus, it doesn't look too shabby. So the reason I'm making this video is because this master clutch cylinder that I removed from right there at the top of the firewall, with taking off these two bolts, got one more in there, and punching this little pin out of the back end of it with a little small punch. You can use a small nail with the sharp end cut off. Basically put a board in there and hit it with a hammer a couple times and pull it out with a pair of pliers. So let's get right down to it here. The problem I had was this eye that used to be on the end of the push rod of this master clutch cylinder was gored out so far, and this is a steel rod, so it really did some work. As you clutch on these things, it takes quite a bit of energy to push these clutches in on these bigger engines. So Ford decided, I guess, to just put their regular master clutch cylinder into this truck, and it's not strong enough to deal with all this extra pressure. Over time, you're going to get problems, and then you won't be able to clutch, and then you won't be able to depress the clutch far enough to be able to get the ignition to work. It just has a little spot where you have to have the clutch in so far. It's got a switch on that push rod. That push rod switch is right here, and basically you pull this little deal off the back of it and it'll come off, and then you can just push it right out of this notch. It'll come right out of that notch. It only goes on one way. You can figure it out as you go along. I'm not going to show it here, but it's pretty simple to figure out. And then it's got a plug in on the end. You got to make sure you unplug it or let it dangle. My fix that I've found on PowerstrokeDiesel.com was to put a Heim joint on this pivot arm here, and I've got the pivot arm loose right now. This is splined right up in here, so you can adjust it, and I'm going to show you why you're going to need the adjustment here in a bit. But you can see the neck of this Heim joint is Oh man, it's probably 1.25 inches long. But I've got it, but it only goes up to maybe 1 inch. So when I threaded this on, or when I slipped this onto the shaft of this master cylinder, which by the way was only about this long before, I could only depress the clutch about 5/8 of an inch, and that wasn't enough to disengage the clutch or even actuate that ignition switch. So what I've done is I've taken my welder, my AC arc welder. It's a stick rod welder, and I'm sure any welder will work. I actually didn't weld it very good because there's still a hole right there, but it should work for what I'm doing. It's not the best weld job, but what I needed was to extend this shaft out a little bit more so I could get more of an depressing distance for this clutch to actuate. So that's all I think I can tell you about that. If it works, I'll post this video, and if it doesn't, I mean, I might have to grind a little bit of the end of this off, because I would like this to set up right in the bottom end of the seat, right in the bottom of that Heim joint. By the way, if you look back on that, there's a set screw put into that Heim joint. I'll just show it here. The Heim joint doesn't come with the set screw. You have to drill a hole. It's basically take a metal punch a hole right on the fat part of this. Because it's fat, you can see it's got flat sides. You want to do it on the thickest part so you can get enough threads in there. Drilled a hole, found a set screw at Cow Ranch, which is a farming store. They got all kinds of bolts and nuts. And also found this 3/8 diameter 8 gauge or 8 whatever, grade 8 bolt to go through this knuckle of the Heim joint with a lock nut on the end. So I think, see, this is going out of focus. This Heim joint, by the way, is a really difficult item to find in your local hardware stores or your auto supply stores. I did find a source at Granger. You could go into Granger and they can order it in. You can also try find it online somewhere. I wasn't patient enough to do that. What I really did was basically found this old 4x4 shop that was just custom pieces and parts, custom welded brackets and blah blah blah. And after I went to 2 big 4x4 stores, they told me to go to this little place, and it was actually in the basement of a chiropractor's office. It was called Midnight 4x4. It's on State Street, and I can't remember the south, 3600 south or so in Salt Lake City. But there's probably plenty of these little 4x4 shops in your city or your town. You might be able to find one. He had that hanging right on the wall, and so I actually looked at 9 other stores before I found it, because I was in a hurry. I didn't want to wait online and then not have the part I needed. And anyway, this little Heim joint deal works with the extended welded on piece on the push rod. I will post this video as soon as possible for all y'all who are working on these cool little old trucks, these big old trucks. Not too little, really. And good luck with your work. Thanks for watching.